Ah, hello there. Caught me at the perfect time because it is part 2 of that Banjo Kazooie Ultimate Critique Definitive Review. But today, it is Banjo Tooie we are looking at. Banjo Tooie, the sequel released in 2000 to Banjo Kazooie. Again, I'm looking at it on Rare Replay, which is the Xbox 360 version and not the N64 version. But Banjo Tooie was released to also critical acclaim like Banjo Kazooie, and by some is considered even better than Banjo Kazooie. Others may feel differently, but that's what we're here to find out. To do this ultimate critique, where we critique all the levels, the bosses, the music, the characters, the story, the graphics. Everything is getting put under a magnifying glass for this definitive ultimate critique of Banjo Tooie. So, let's just get right into it, as it's still as great as I remember, and is it even better than Banjo Kazooie?
So let's look at this second game, but now under this critical lens. And there's going to be a bit more to unpack with this game. Let's start with the plot. The game is much more story focused than the previous game. 2 years after the first game has passed and Grunty is still in the ground. Klungo has been trying to get her out, but he sucks. Grunty's sisters then show up and are able to get her out of the ground. In the meantime, Banjo Kazooie, Mumbo, and Bottles are all playing cards, having a nice time. Well, Grunty sends out a spell to Banjo's home. Everyone gets out in time except for Bottles. He bites the dust and actually dies. Yeah, he dies. So Banjo and Kazooie begin their quest to stop Grunty again. Well, they fight Klungo and they own him. They then meet with King Jingaling, who asks them to find all the Jinjos who have been scattered from the village because this giant drill machine known as the Hag 1 has gone through their village. After they leave, we go back to Grunty, who is a life-sucking laser now. She wants a body, but needs to use this laser to get her body back. You see, she's just all bags and bones now, and she's not allowed to rhyme anymore. They shoot the laser at Jingaling and suck the life out of him. He becomes a zombie. The gun then has to recharge, so they wait. So Banjo and Kazooie go on their quest for real now. Well, the story takes a huge backseat after this. Well, the first 30 minutes to an hour of the game is just cutscenes, really, and then there really isn't any for the rest of the game until the very end. So we're going to go to that now. After the duo finally get to the cauldron, well, they beat Klungo again, and then he quits becoming Grunty's minion and becomes a good guy. Then after a trivia game that ends up getting both of Grunty's sisters crushed, she runs off. Banjo and Kazooie then get to the laser gun. They restore life back to Jingaling and Bottles. They then fight Grunty and promptly wipe the floor with her. After trying to have a party, but Klungo eating everything, the group decides to play something else. The game then ends with the duo, Jam Jars, Mumbo, and Wumba playing kickball with Grunty's head. The story is a lot more involved in this game, if you couldn't tell, like a lot more involved. The original game had a really basic plot and it was pretty lighthearted. This game has a much darker plot and the story is much more present. The stakes are higher as well. Now it can be argued which game is the better plot till the end of time. Whether the darker plot has more depth or if the light-hearted kind of fun plot was better. I'll be totally honest, I prefer this plot actually. I like the new dark parts to it. I like the somewhat brooding atmosphere and just how there is a bit of edginess to it. Don't get me wrong, the original game has a certain charm to it that this game does not, but I prefer the more in-depth, serious storyline. When it comes to characters, they also feel like they've been a lot more fleshed out. A lot of them were pretty basic in the original game, and while they had personality, this game really showcases that for a lot more. For instance, Mumbo is really shown off a lot more in this story. The entire character arc with Klungo I thought was also really good. There is a bunch of new characters that are presented as well, and I think they are honestly just as strong as the characters in the previous game. Jam Jars is just like Bottles, he teaches you new moves, and I think he's just as good. Humba Wumba, while not as good as Mumbo, is still a good character, I think. I think as a whole, all the characters are really good. The only character I actually don't think is as good as they were in the previous game is Grunty. Grunty is just not as great as she was in the previous game. She no longer speaks in rhymes, like I said, which is disappointing. but I also feel that she just doesn't get as much depth as she did in the previous game, and she's nowhere near as prevalent. In the first game, she would be talking smack to you constantly, and it really showed off her personality in spades. That's just not the case in this game, as you're basically limited to just cutscenes. She gets to show her personality off a bit in those, but it's much less than the previous game, that's for sure. In addition to this, her sisters are really inconsequential, really. They may have gotten her out of the ground, but that's literally all they do in the entire game. Like, they get her out of the ground and then they have the giant moving drill. That's it. As a whole, I think the characters are still just pretty fantastic for the most part and really sell the story. The returning characters are great, and the new characters are also pretty nice to excellent, adding to the Banjo story. Additionally, the game is much funnier in its writing. Like, it might have had a darker overtone, but the game is much funnier, in my opinion. The game makes fun of itself all the time. Most of the characters have a joke to crack. If not, then Kazooie does it for them. I really like the personality of the game in that aspect, as it's really a lot more self-aware and understands some stuff, like some stuff that really doesn't make any sense, and it just makes fun of it and really just has fun with it. The characters are way more fleshed out. Something that is much more fleshed out, though, than the original is the world of Banjo-Kazooie. In the original game, it was really just Spiral Mountain. However, in this game, it's the Isle of Hags, an entire island to explore. I much prefer this setting over the originals. The originals felt very limited in scope, and while there's nothing wrong with that, I just prefer the larger scale this game brings. Like, all the worlds are connected as well, giving this giant interconnectivity between the worlds. In the original Banjo and Kazooie, all the worlds felt very segmented and very gated. Each one was just its own world, really, and it could be a bit disjointed, to be honest. This is not the case at all in this game, as every world is connected at least to 2 other worlds. They're all a part of a larger world, and again, I really like the scope and scale. In the end, it depends on the kind of person you are, but that was what I preferred. So let's get into the gameplay with the full-blown sequel. Banjo Tooie plays pretty similar to the original Banjo-Kazooie from a core gameplay standpoint, but its execution is quite different actually. You still go from level to level doing platforming, defeating enemies, and collecting items. However, there are some changes, some substantial, some not so much. Let's go over Banjo and Kazooie themselves first. So every move you learned in the first game returns right off the bat. Yes, every single one, which is great and is decently rare, pun intended, for a video game to do that, in all honesty, where you just get everything. So you can do all of their old moves exactly how you did in the first game. So they start with a lot, actually. They begin the game with quite a number of moves. I'm not going to go over the old moves since I did that in the first part when I reviewed the first Banjo game. Now, in every level in this game, Banjo and Kazooie actually learn at least one new move. They are taught the new moves by Jam Jars, who does the rhyming now, like I mentioned. Yes, though they learn even more moves on top of the dozen they already have. They learn just a bunch of moves. So let's just get right into the new moves. The first new move is egg aiming. In the first game, you could only shoot eggs forward and backwards, basically. Here you can actually go in first person with the cursor and shoot eggs wherever you need to. I will say, though, it's not the most smooth first person controls. You would later in the game even learn how to do this when flying and even underwater. The biggest addition to the moves is probably the new eggs. Yes, you can actually get new egg types in the game. In the first game, it was just those standard blue eggs, but here you get ice eggs, fire eggs, grenade eggs, and Kazooie clockwork eggs. Each egg is used in some special way. The first 3 new eggs I just mentioned are pretty self-explanatory, but the Kazooie clockwork egg actually has you controlling a little Kazooie robot that blows up soon enough. The new eggs are easily the biggest game changer in terms of new moves. The next new move that you get is the Breagle Blaster, which is where you enter first person and go around shooting tons of stuff. This is more of a gameplay type rather than a new move that I'll go into shortly. The next new move you get is the Grip Grab. This allows Banjo to grab ledges and cracks, which is very useful, and it's way more useful than it has any right to be, really. The next move is the Bill Drill, which is basically a more powerful ground pound where you turn Kazooie into a drill, allowing her to destroy rocks and unscrew screws. You get the Beak Bayonet, which is the melee move to use in the first person sections. And then you get the main new mechanic in Banjo Tooie, the Split Up. Yes, on certain pads, if you press B with Banjo and Kazooie, they no longer become Banjo and Kazooie. It's Banjo and Kazooie. They're split up. They're not together. A lot of the puzzles in the game require you to split up, and you'll be doing it more often than you think. But the duo actually get their own separate moves that can be only used when they're alone. So the first solo move Banjo gets is the Pack Whack, which is where he swings his backpack around as an attack. It can also be used for a double jump, just jump, swing, jump again. I'm pretty sure this is an exploit, but nobody seemed to confirm it. If someone could tell me what they think, that'd be great. Kazooie's first solo move is the Wing Whack, which is just her version of an attack. She can still do the flutter jump, and it's a lot better since she doesn't have Banjo weighing her down. The next move you get in the game actually requires both of them, and that's the Talon Torpedo. Basically, Banjo shoots Kazooie off in the water, and she swims very fast, and it can be used to destroy certain rocks. The next power-up works with either Banjo and Kazooie or just Kazooie. It's a new pair of shoes. It's the Spring Shoes. It's shoes with springs on them. You get one incredibly high jump from it. You do have a time limit to use that one jump though. There is another pair of new shoes in the game known as the Claw Clamber Boots, which allow you to climb walls with yellow feet marks on it. Like the previous two shoe power-ups in Banjo-Kazooie, they are incredibly situational, and you honestly won't be using that much. You won't be using them really that much at all during the game, minus a few very specific times. All the other moves you learn in the game are exclusive to either Banjo or Kazooie. Banjo learns the Taxi Pack. Without the bird in his backpack, you can actually put other stuff in the backpack, such as people or objects. Banjo also gets the Snooze Pack, which is where he goes in his backpack and takes a nap. This actually heals you though. You get the Shack Pack, which is where Banjo goes inside it and can walk. He can walk in the backpack, like his feet are touching the ground still, and it allows you to go in smaller areas and go in extremely dangerous substances like toxic soup or boiling hot water. The final move Banjo learns is actually the opposite, which is the Sack Pack, where Banjo's head is sticking out of the bag as opposed to his feet. He hops around in his pack, allowing him to bounce on water and bounce on top of dangerous materials such as these thorns. When it comes to the rest of the moves, they're all Kazooie's, and they are as follows. She can hatch, which is where she sits on top of an egg and literally hatches it. The next move is barely a new move. Basically, the high backflip that she could do with Banjo, yeah, it's the same thing, only she jumps even higher because she's not with Banjo. Her final move that she gets is the Glide. This basically just allows her to fly. She can't fly up, but she can stay at the same level for a very long time. And that is all the new moves you get in the game. If you couldn't tell, there's way more moves you get for one specific character rather than the duo as a whole. The duo as a whole doesn't really get that many new moves at all. Like maybe a couple, but it's really the individual moves that are new really. One thing that I'm certain seems very obvious, just from my descriptions alone of all the moves, is that a lot of the moves you get, especially when you split up, are incredibly situational. Like, incredibly situational. Like, to a fault, really. In the first game, almost every single move you got was used extensively, except maybe the shoe power-ups, they were used a bit less. In this game, you get many moves that you will use like less than 5 times in the game. You can count on one hand how many times you'll need these moves to get a collectible in the game. And if you're trying to get all the collectibles, if you're not trying to get all the collectibles in the game, you'll use them even less. For instance, Banjo's sleeping move is literally only needed for like 1 Jiggy in the whole game. Or Kazooie's hatch move is needed for like 2, maybe 3. I don't even think 3. That's it. Like, it's so incredibly situational. And I could see someone who only got specific collectibles, like, literally never having to even use some of these moves. Ever. So with all these new moves introduced, they are sparingly used. It's really only the final level that the duo split up for almost every collectible. Like, the last world, in that one, you split up for almost every collectible. But other than that, there is a sense of underutilization, I'm not gonna lie. But that is enough about the duo's moves. It's clear they're more capable than ever before. But what will the duo be doing? Collecting, of course. Let's get into the collectibles. The main collectible is still the same as it was before, the Jiggies. There are 10 per level still. These are definitely the most important collectibles, and they're needed to progress really at all in the game. These will be your rewards for a majority of the tasks present in the game. While in the first game a majority of Jiggies were collected by just finding them in the world, that is not the case in Tooie. Most of them are collected by doing tasks for NPCs in the world. I would say not even a third of the Jiggies are just collected in the game or found. It's actually rare to find a level where there's just a Jiggy in the level, aside from the first one. No, you'll be doing tasks and mini-games for these things. It's more comparable to DK64 than it is Banjo 1. Most of the time you come across an NPC who needs a certain item or items, and they'll trade you a Jiggy for it, or they have a mini-game that you need to beat. If it's not one of those two, it's a basic do this for me and I'll give you the Jiggy situation. That's usually what's asked upon the player throughout the game. This means that every level really varies from the last, as different things are asked in every level. Also, every level features a boss, or at least most of the levels feature a boss, which will give a Jiggy upon defeat. Jiggies, if you couldn't just guess, take a lot longer to get in this game and have a lot more puzzles behind them. The next collectible is the notes. Unlike the last game, you don't have to get every note individually. They now come in clumps. They usually come in clumps of 5 or 10, and then there's the treble clef, which is 25. You won't be exploring the map really for these notes in all honesty, as they're all laid out pretty well. If you're just exploring the area decently, or even generally, you will find them all. I actually very much like this approach to collecting the notes, as you don't have to collect more than you don't have to collect just tons of them. I mean, there's maybe 20 total notes in the whole level as opposed to the 100 that was in there. It's a lot more efficient, and it's nice. You actually use these notes to get new moves from Jam Jars. Yes, he has note requirements. All in all, the notes, they're a lot more streamlined than the previous games, but I think it's better. The next collectible is the return of the Jinjos. However, instead of there being 5 different colored Jinjos in every level, there is now Jinjo houses split up by color because of racism. In every Jinjo house, there are so many Jinjos living in it. It could be 5, it could be 6, it could be even 1. There are a few Jinjos in every level, but you won't get a Jiggy until you get every Jinjo in a house. Once you save every Jinjo in the same colored house, you get the Jiggy automatically. But you still need to find them hidden in these levels. Moving on, the honeycomb pieces return as well. There are 3 hidden in every world in the game. Once you collect so many of them, you take them to this new character, Honey Bee, who will trade them for more max health. It's basically how it was in the previous game, in all honesty. You just have to give it to her now. A new collectible in the game is the Cheeto pages. Cheeto the book returns, and his pages have been ripped out of him and spread all over the game. You collect 5 of them and bring them back to him, and he will unlock a cheat for you. Like the previous game, you really don't need these cheats, and I never even used any of them. They are more fun, I guess, but the pages are a collectible regardless. Then there is Mumbo tokens. Oh wait, there's no Mumbo tokens. You see, now, replacing the Mumbo tokens, we have Globos. There are 2 in every level. They are given to either Mumbo Jumbo or Humbo Wumba. They are always hidden near the Shawman or Shawwoman, I guess. You won't actually really be looking for these. They even make a noise that they're close. One of them, in fact, actually 2 of them are literally in their huts. You won't have to be searching for these. The last collectible in the game is the game packs, which have stop and swap bonus items. These are just hidden throughout the game, similarly to the stop and swap in the first game, only now you actually get stuff for them. So while there is a little more to collect in terms of types of collectibles, there is actually less of the collectibles. However, getting these collectibles takes a lot more time than the previous game. A lot more time. In fact, significantly more time. With all these collectibles, what else is in these levels to impede your progress? The enemies, of course. The basic enemies act the same as the first game, requiring only 1 or 2 attacks to defeat. I will say enemies respawn, and they respawn really fast actually in this game. I will say that a new enemy that is worth bringing up by itself is the Minjos. They are little evil fake Jinjos. They literally act like Jinjos, but they try to hurt you when you get close to them. I hate these little bastards. Ugh. You still don't regenerate health minus Banjo's sleeping move, so you have to collect honeycombs to get health back. There's a couple new honeycombs that randomly give you new health and all this other stuff. Something that has been removed is lives. You just respawn at the level entrance with no consequence really. This in turn means that there are a lot more bottomless pits in the game. Bosses are much more present in the game. They actually make a big deal out of them. Every level minus the first level has a boss. They have like health and everything and are more of a spectacle really than anything else. In all honesty, they're really easy, but they're a nice change of pace. Moving on, the power-ups have changed a bit. All the power-ups are collected in clumps like the notes, the red feathers, the eggs, the gold feathers. They're all in multiple amounts, which is nice. In every level, like I mentioned, there are 2 shaman, or Shaw people, I guess. You give each one of them a globo that hangs around the area. If you give Mumbo one, well, it's different than the last games. He doesn't transform, he actually gets up and you get to play as him. Mumbo can do 3 things really. He can jump once, he can use his little lightning stick as an attack, and he can use his abilities on the contextual pad. You see all over the game you will come across these pads with Mumbo's face on it. All you have to do is bring Mumbo to them and he will use his ability. It's different almost every pad. Sometimes it's healing, sometimes it's causing it to rain, or sometimes it's making something come to life. It's really different every level, but you will need Mumbo's abilities for something. And while it can feel a little gimmicky, I thought it was a decent change of pace. Now Wumba, she's in charge of the transformations. You give her a Globo and jump in her jacuzzi to transform. Unlike the last game, every level is a transformation. Every single level. I'll go more in depth about each transformation in the level by level look at, but I will say every transformation is decently different from the last and they can all defend themselves -1. You will be mostly using these transformations to get to a certain area, usually inaccessible, or it's like hard to get to. That's usually the most common use, is that you get to somewhere that you can't normally get to. Now there is a variety of mini games in the game, ranging from kickball to first-person shooter segments to rail shooter-like segments. This game has quite a few really. I will say all of them are at the very least serviceable. Unlike Donkey Kong 64, where some of the minigames were just insanely difficult and horrible, I think these minigames get challenging without becoming too unfair, and I thought all of them were at the very least alright. The one that does show up the most is the first-person shooter segments, which is where you go around these maze-like areas and are tasked with usually destroying something, and they're hidden in these mazes. They aren't terrible, but like I said, the controls aren't exactly smooth, as the crosshair resets to the middle whenever you move, meaning it's really hard to look anywhere other than forward and move at the same time. They aren't terrible, but one of these levels really gets on my nerves. The other minigames are usually pretty short and are mildly fun. They're a nice distraction to say the least. Speaking of worlds, I think it's time to mention the worlds themselves. The worlds in Banjo Tooie are absolutely massive. All the worlds are at least twice as big as the worlds in the original game. No exaggeration. These are huge, sprawling levels. There is a lot to do in these levels and a lot to see, that's for sure. There are only 8 true worlds in the game, but these will take you significantly longer than any of the levels in the original game. Many of the levels in the original could be completed in an hour or even under if you had any idea what you were doing. You'd be hard pressed to fully complete a level in an hour in this game, like really hard pressed. Something to help you out though is that there are warp pads in every single level. You just have to walk over them to activate them, and then you can warp to any other pad you've activated. This is even present in the main hub, because the main hub is also large. In addition, all of the worlds are connected in some way. In the original game, each world, like I said, was really like a vacuum, where it was self-contained. But, like the scope in the world of this game, all the levels are interconnected. There are many ways that they are connected. For instance, there is this train that goes through almost every level in the game. Many jiggies in the game require this train. In fact, to get into one of the levels at all, you actually have to use the train. That's just one way they're interconnected. There are literally dozens of other ways that these levels are collected. Like, you may need to bring an item from one level to a character who is in a completely different level. No level is self-contained, and every single level has at least one jiggy that requires backtracking, or it requires you to do something in one world to affect another. But backtracking is a real thing in Tooie. In the first game, it was only needed once, but here it's in every single level, where you will get to a part of the level where you just can't do what the game is asking you to do because you don't have the move yet, and so you'll have to continue without the jiggy until you get the move, and then you can return to the previous area to get the jiggy or Jinjo or Cheeto page or whatever that collectible is. My thoughts on this, I'll have in a bit, that's for sure. But enough just broadly talking about these levels. I think it's finally time to go to what I really want to get into, which is talking about the levels a little more in depth, the level by level. However, before you can even enter any of these levels, any of the new levels anyway, you actually have to put the Jiggies in place like the first game. However, it's an actual puzzle now at Jiggy Wiggy's Palace. You just come here with enough Jiggies to do the puzzle. Literally the puzzle. These are fun little distractions, I'm not gonna lie, I like them, they're relatively harmless. Anyway, the first level in the game is actually Spiral Mountain again. You're here even less time than the original game, though you're briefly here at the beginning. You can find Cheeto in Grunty's old lair, and you can even get a secret new swimming move if you come back later in the game, but I didn't tell you that. There's nothing really here. The next kind of hub area is Jinjo Village. There really isn't anything here in all honesty, and it's just where the Jinjos live. And Bottles the Mole actually lives here, which is cool I guess, but you get to go tell his family that he's dead. This then takes you to Jiggy Wiggy's Palace, where you do the puzzle minigame to unlock new levels once you have enough pieces. And this is the beginning of the main hub world in the game, the Isle of Hags. This is a bit bigger than Grunty's lair, and it's certainly more spread out. And it's really just used to go to these levels. There is a bit of world interactivity, but as a whole it's really just a hub. I actually like this because, like I've said, I love the larger scope of the game, and it feels like it's more of an adventure, especially when compared to the lair. But that's it for the hub levels. Let's talk about the real levels of the game. The first level in the game is Mayhem Temple. This level is easily the most simple of any level in the game, and it feels more of an extension of the first game's levels. It's mostly a linear path that circles around this mountain. There's also a marsh area to the side as well. For the Jiggies, you mostly just have to find them in the area through basic exploration. The first FPS area is in this level, and it's really easy and basic and just trying to get you used to the controls. Mumbo Jumbo is able to summon this giant gold statue actually. With him you get a Jiggy, you can kick open giant doors, and that was cool. The transformation has you turning into a Stony, a little stone creature who can headbutt everything. With this you go and actually play kickball with the other Stonies for a Jiggy. This is a fun transformation, one of the better ones honestly. There is no boss in this level, and the level doesn't take too long to complete. You do need to backtrack to get one Jiggy however, but it is rather nonchalant, it's pretty basic. I think this is a great introduction level and really gets the player ready for the rest of the game while feeling very familiar to the last game. It's a good gap, I think. The second level in the game is Glitter Gulch Mine. This level is essentially a really long, quite wide tunnel with a few starting paths, but all of it leads back to the middle area. There is a minecart to go on that leads down the entire level. You even race a bird on it. There is some Jiggies related to the power and electricity, like this one in Total Darkness. A first-person area is here, and it's a lot harder than the first levels, with a time limit and a somewhat confusing maze to find sticks of dynamite in. With Mumbo, you really just have to move this rock to a grinder where it's able to get all the Jiggy pieces out of the rock. It's pretty basic stuff. The transformation in this level is a detonator. This thing hops around everywhere, and you use it with lines of dynamite to blow up a few things in this world. You have to actually blow up to hurt enemies, meaning you have to hurt yourself. I'll be honest, this transformation sucks. It's easily the worst in the game. It's awkward to handle, what you do with it isn't very impressive, and it's just not fun to use in this level. The level is decently self-contained as you only need to backtrack for one, maybe two Jiggies. This is also where you get Chuffy the Train, who will be helping you out with many other parts of the game. To get him though, you have to fight the boss King Cole. This dude is a complete joke. You literally just shoot him with eggs in first person. There's literally nothing to it. Glitter Gulch Mine as a whole might actually be my least favorite level in the game. It's rather big with not too much in it. Getting the Jiggies isn't exactly the most fun, and I dislike the transformation. I'm just not a fan of this level, like, at all, and especially the music. I don't like the music. The third level in this game is the flip side, and it's actually my favorite level in the whole game. And it's Witchy World. This level is great for a variety of reasons. The whole joke with Witchy World is that it's run down, dangerous, and sucks. I mean, it's by Grunty, so you know it would suck. Everything is so run down and crummy, and I love it. From the employees and the crap food, to the broken rides, to even the signs saying that you can't sue them, it's all great stuff. The level is a giant tent in the middle and has a bunch of areas that split off from the tent. Each area is some attraction, from the western land with the bounce house to the space world with the flying saucer shooting game. Actually, there's a lot of mini games in this level, however, I think all of them are fun. Or the fire world where you have to run up this slide as Kazooie. Yes, this is the level where you first get to break Banjo and Kazooie apart. However, I will say I think you only have to split them apart for two Jiggies in the whole level actually. There's food to get here as well, which will be taken from you if you leave the park. There's polar bears to find, and these are actually the same polar bears from the first game. Gobi even shows up and you rescue him. Mumbo is used for powering up some machines in the world since they're also run down and crummy. The transformation is the money car, which is used to go in special doors, pay off ticket machines, and get enough tickets to enter the big top in the middle of the map. Now if you enter the big top, here is where you fight easily my favorite boss in the game, if not the series, Mr. Patches. He actually puts up a challenge and you have to shoot the patches on him with grenade eggs to deflate him. I really like this boss. It's actually really fun, the music is great, and it's actually harder to hit some of his patches. Witchy World is also when the game starts becoming much more interconnected, as there's at least 3 instances of you needing to do something in another world and coming back to Witchy World to do it, and vice versa. But you only need to backtrack a little bit here. There isn't too much backtracking in this level. It's relatively harmless. This is my favorite level in the game for sure, and I always look forward when playing it. Next is the 4th level, Jolly Roger Lagoon, the obligatory water level. Outside the lagoon there is a bar and a shop or two. Use Mumbo Jumbo to make it so there's oxygen in the water. It's one of its lamer uses. In the water there's Atlantis, a UFO to explore, and even a giant fish that you go in and rescue someone. There is actually quite a lot to see in the lagoon actually. The transformation in the level is a submarine, which it's pretty cool. It has sonar and can shoot missiles. I just wish it had more use besides this minigame. It feels a bit underutilized considering the moveset. You can fight the boss with it though, making him easy. The boss is Lord Wu Fak Fak. I have no idea how they got away with that name. I'll give credit here though, he's one of the harder bosses. He puts up a challenge, but it's also kind of because of the controls. He is a fun fight though, that's for sure. And the level is pretty alright and is a good water level. However, this level is a lot of backtracking and world interactivity. Like seriously, 3 or 4 of the jiggies in this game require you to backtrack. There is one jiggy in particular that requires a lot of backtracking, that it requires so much I'm going to go over it separately. There's just a lot of coming back to this level, so I hope you like it. This leads us to the 5th level, Pterodactyl Land. This is easily the biggest level in the game. This level is just so massive. There's dinosaurs everywhere, rocks falling, and poison ivy. A lot of the level is you interacting with the cavemen in some capacity, whether you're scaring them, blowing them up, or feeding them food. You interact with them quite a bit. You climb up the mountain in the middle as well. Up there you find this giant dinosaur that would love to stomp a mud hole in you. And at the very top, you also find this boss, whose name is Terry. Ooh, he's got a whole land name after him. And he's take a guess, a pterodactyl. Ha ha ha. This boss is pathetically easy and puts up very little challenge. You just have to dodge his rocks and hit him. Mumbo's here as well. Use him to make Wumba's tent big and to heal a dinosaur. So Wumba has 2 transformations depending on if you had Mumbo make her tent big. These are the small dinosaur and the large T-Rex. The small dinosaur actually can't attack. It's the only transformation in the game that can't, and it sucks. The large T-Rex can go around stomping on everything, roaring, and scaring the crap out of everything. It's one of the better transformations in the game, even though it's only used for like 1 or 2 puzzles in the game. I like stomping everything and scaring the cavemen though. Just like the last level, there's a lot of world interactivity with this world, and one jiggy in particular requiring like 3 levels worth of interconnectivity to complete, which was just a bit much. I was not a fan of helping out Mama Dinosaur. It was just too much. Even Kazooie jokes that it's just too much and you should get 2 jiggies for it. Overall, the level wasn't bad, but it was a bit middling in all honesty. There was just so much world connecting and backtracking that I needed a guide. I love how big the world is in some parts of it, but other parts just feel way too long for its own good. Then we get to Grunty Industries, like the most hated level in the original 2 games. If you thought any of the other levels were confusing before, then this is just going to be the most confusing level ever. Just getting into Grunty Industries is somewhat confusing, as you have to take the train that you unlocked in the second world into the factory. Otherwise you can't get inside. The world interactivity in Grunty Industries is actually pretty good as a whole. The entire world is extremely connected in itself, like breaking the windows will get you going inside, going through the chimney will have you coming down from the roof, unscrewing screws on a floor that's higher than another will drop something lower. Like, it's pretty nice. That's all fine and dandy, but I'll be honest, some of these jiggies are just beyond confusing in this world. For instance, the transformation in this level is a washing machine. Use this to go through service elevators and clean rabbit overalls. These rabbits are generally well hidden in the factory, and you'll be doing some serious exploration for them. Then using the magnets with the washing machine, that was just a pain in the ass. This level is very easy to get lost in just because of how it looks. It just looks too similar. I found myself frequently going, where was that thing, or where did I do this, or etc. It was quite annoying. I spent a long time just getting used to the level and the layout, not even getting any jiggies till like an hour in. Mumbo is used for disabling machines, and this is okay, I guess. I just really wasn't that big on it, especially the one with the magnet, as it's timed. Are you kidding me? Not all of the collectibles are annoying. There's one or two that I think were actually interestingly designed, like the Crusher one or the one outside the factory. But so much of this level just feels like a chore. To even go to the other areas in the factory, you have to bring batteries on the door, and you have to find them, and you have to grab them with Banjo's backpack and bring them back. Like, it just takes a really long time to do anything in this level. There is one jiggy to backtrack to, and surprisingly it's only one, but it will take you a long time to get through this level regardless. The only thing that doesn't take a long time is actually the boss. The boss is this giant welder thing, and you just shoot grenade eggs into him. It's really easy, actually. There's really nothing to him, but that's not like the level. There's a lot to this level. You'll be spending a lot of time here, especially if you don't have any guides, because there is some cryptic stuff in this level. There's even a first-person shooter part that is just not fun either, as you're looking for crap covering the fence. This part was not very fun. It's not terrible, but it's so intricately designed, and I can appreciate that, but it requires a lot of patience, a lot of exploration. It's just too much, and that's what it really is. This level is just too much. It's easily the hardest level in the game. I like it a bit more as an adult now, and I can appreciate it, but like as a kid when I was younger, I hated this level. The next level is Hailfire Peaks. So the main gimmick of this level is that there are two sides of the mountain. One side is completely fire and lava, and the other is snowy and ice. The first thing you'll notice right off the bat is that both sides interact with each other on more than one occasion, which is a pretty good gimmick. You'll also almost immediately notice that almost all of the collectibles have you doing something in another world to do something in this world. I'm not kidding. Almost a majority of them, in the level have you doing something in another level that relates back to this level. For instance, you have to go back to the first level through a secret passageway and come back as a Stony to play kickball in the lava world. The aliens return from Jolly Roger Lagoon, but only if you helped them out in that level, or getting the train to the very end of the tracks, which actually requires Gobi to help you, who was in Witchy World. So that's a couple levels. That's literally like 3 or 4 levels worth of interactivity, like level interactivity. And while it's really cool to see almost all the levels interact with this level, it gets to a certain point where I'm just like, okay, so what can I actually do in the level by itself? Well, you can fight the bosses, these 2 big dragons. These bosses are a complete joke and are probably the second easiest bosses in the game. You literally just shoot eggs in the cannon. It's very easy. It's really shockingly easy, especially for how late in the game it is. It's just not good, and they make you do the same fight twice. Nothing is different about either brother, just the color. It doesn't even matter which egg you use in the cannon. Mumbo is used a couple times to help out this adventurer from an old Rare game and to resurrect the aliens. However, they make you go back and forth with him too much for my liking, honestly. Like, you have to go back and forth like 3 or 4 times with him. It's a bit overkill. The transformation that is in this level is a snowball, and depending on your health depends how big it is. This is one of the more underutilized transformations, as you literally only need it for like 1 or 2 things. Like pressing a switch down. You have to be heavy enough to press the switch down with it. That's like it. I guess rolling into people is fun though. While I do like this level, there are parts of it that are just way too cryptic. You can only get a few jiggies if you don't do all that world connection stuff. At the very least, it probably is the most interesting gimmick of the whole game, and they actually did something with it as well. But this would bring us to the final real level of the game, and that's Cloud Cuckoo Land. This is probably the most forgotten level in the game, especially, I think it's probably because it's the last one, and it's also like the weirdest level in the game by far. It's high up in the sky, and there's a bunch of platforms that connect back to this large cave structure. There's all these plants to shoot you from platform to platform, and they're quite a ways away. There's a race to partake in with the bird from Glitter Gulch Mine, and this race can get on up out of here. Seriously, screw this race. It's way harder than the first one. She's way faster than you, and you have to strategically plan out when you'll go fast. I hate this race. Mumbo is used to make it rain, which affects these beans you do find in the game, making stuff grow. It's actually one of his cooler functions, in all honesty. However, make sure you go into the right hut. You see, if you go into the wrong one, you're attacked by a Minjo, a robotic Mumbo Jumbo. This is the boss for the level. While this is a bit lazy, this boss is actually decently challenging, especially considering that there's no room. He just shoots fireballs really, but you just kick his ass too. The transformation in the level is the only returning transformation from the game, and it's the bee. And surprisingly, it's not as underutilized. You can fly infinitely and sting people, and shoot needles, or whatever you shoot at it. Use it for 2 jiggies actually, where you help these bees and shoot these eyeballs. It's better here than it was in the first game. Now besides those jiggies, the other ones all require Banjo and Kazooie to split up in some way. Like I brought up way earlier, this level actually requires them to split up for almost every jiggy. And I think this level best demonstrates the split up mechanic as a whole, and actually uses almost all of their moves. For that reason, I think it's one of the better levels in the game, as it properly showcases them splitting up. I'll be honest, it's a really weird level, like going into the giant garbage can or racing this armadillo in Banjo's backpack, but it certainly was memorable. I definitely had fun doing it, and I'm really unsure as to why this is like the most forgotten level in the game, because like I said, I think it's really fun, and like I said, it's probably forgotten because it's the last level. There's no backtracking, at least, since it's the last level, but there are a few things that require some stuff from the other worlds, so it's not completely out of the woods. But like I said, I think it's a pretty great level. But that's it for the main levels of the game, but you aren't just done yet. There's still Cauldron Keep. That's where Grunty and her sisters hang out. This was originally supposed to be a level actually, but it was cut due to time constraints. It shows up and there's literally like nothing here. You split up to get inside and then you fight Klungo together. Oh yeah, Klungo is a boss. I guess I just forgot to mention him. Well, you fight him 3 times in the game and it's a complete joke every single time. You literally just dodge him, dodge his potions, and then hit him again. And it's no different in any of these 3 forms. After you kick his ass again, like I said, he gives up being a minion and becomes a good guy, but he becomes a game designer. Then you do the Tower of Tragedy, another trivia game. However, this is significantly better than Furnace Fun, like it's not even close. All the questions are much more focused around the game itself, the grunty questions are just gone, and it doesn't last anywhere near as long. I actually kind of enjoyed this and thought it was fun calling back to previous parts of the game. There's no mini-game replaying either, it's strictly trivia about previous parts of the game, which is cool. This was much better than the last games by a long shot. I was kind of surprised that I liked it at all, and I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. And then after that, you fight the final boss. I'm not gonna lie, the final boss is actually kind of challenging in this game, and it's probably harder than any other boss in the game. Not only does it have some difficult moves to dodge, but the biggest challenge is definitely the controls. You're actually in first person for part of it, and when this happens, you're literally just fighting the controls, because you have to aim up to shoot Grunty and dodge your attacks. However, every time you move at all, the cursor goes back to the middle of the screen, meaning you're awkwardly moving your thumb up to try to keep it locked on her and shoot eggs and dodge. It's incredibly uncomfortable and just gets awkward. It gets pretty tense near the end when she brings out the mustard gas, yet she literally tries to gas you straight out of World War II, so you start losing health fast. It's not an easy fight, that's for sure, and having better controls on an Xbox One controller, it doesn't really mean anything, it just doesn't help. It's just difficult with the controls. And after you manage to beat her, you're done with the game. If you couldn't tell, this game is much longer than the first game. In comparison, it took me around 9 to 10 hours to beat the first game. It took me around 19 to 20 hours to beat this game, meaning it's really twice as long to beat the game, and I got all the collectibles across both of them. And while there is less collectibles, they all take way longer to get. As you can tell, these levels are much bigger and have more tasks than the first game ever had. This game is quite grand, if you couldn't tell. Well, it's very clear that there are some levels I like more than others. In fact, there are some levels, one level in particular, I just straight up dislike. I will say all of them have a certain charm to them, that's for sure. I guess the next thing I could bring up in the gameplay, and really the last thing to bring up in the gameplay, would be the game carts. Hidden in the game, there are a few game carts, and when you smash them, you get stop and swap items. You take them to Heggy the hen, who hatches the eggs for you for some bonuses. You get some stuff for nuts and bolts in the Xbox version, but in the original game you got Jinjo as a multiplayer character. You get a secret move, the Breagle Bash, which is where Banjo slams Kazooie down, which would be a move in Smash Brothers. And then the ice key isn't hatched because it's not an egg. No, what you do with this is you actually take it to open a giant safe, and inside is the Mega Globo. Yeah, the Mega Globo. You take this to Wumba outside Witchy World, and she turns Kazooie into a dragon. That's actually pretty cool. Now she breathes fire. So unlike the previous game, you actually get something for Stop and Swap. It's not amazing, but it's definitely way better than what was in the first game, which was nothing. But that's it for the main gameplay of the game. I think it's time to talk about the presentation. The graphics in Banjo Tooie are just fantastic on every single level. There's actually nothing to fault here at all with the graphics at all. I think the original game looked great when it came out, and this game looks even better. The colors are more vibrant, the textures just all around look better and are more polished. There's much less muddy textures as well. Like, everything just looks great in the texture department. The water looks great, it looks better than it did in the original game. The lighting and shadows are greatly improved as well. There's much more dynamic lighting. Like, it's just significantly better. For instance, if you shoot a fire egg in a dark area, it lights up the whole area. That's really cool, and it's greatly improved on that aspect. The animation is much better, it's a lot more livelier and just unique. Banjo and Kazooie have awesome animation. I love all of it, from their moves to even their idle animations. It's all great. Everything is so fun, and it's just much better, like, than the first games. And the first games was great. Like, nothing looks stilted, and you know what, just for an N64 game, it's just really top-notch quality. Lip syncing doesn't really exist. They don't have real voices, so there you go. The frame rate is fantastic on the Xbox version. I know the original version of the game actually had some serious frame rate issues, but that's not the case on this re-release, which runs great, which is awesome because I remember the original game had some serious slowdown on almost every single level, and it was pretty annoying. So another reason the Xbox version is superior also. It runs in modern resolutions as well, so there you go. The game isn't blurry in the slightest either. Really, there's nothing but good to say about the graphics as a whole. Like, you'd be very hard-pressed to find anything bad about the graphics. It's one of the best-looking Nintendo 64 games, and one of the best-looking games of the era. Now I think it's time to talk about the sound in Banjo Tooie. I think the sound in Banjo Tooie is actually just, well, fantastic, really. First off, the characters still don't speak and make gibberish noises again. This is good with me, as I wasn't annoyed the first time and am not again. Every single character has their own unique sound, which is decently impressive. Other sound effects in the game are also good. A lot of them are reused from the first game, which is fine enough, but there are still a number of new ones. These all sound good, as the noises Banjo and Kazooie make, they're all well and dandy as well. But the real standout of the sound is the music. The Banjo Tooie music, I think, is just fantastic, really. Just like Banjo Kazooie, depending on where you are in the level theme changes slightly. For instance, being inside a building or being underwater will change the level theme a bit, meaning there are well over 100 tracks in the game. Every level is multiple renditions, really just preventing you from ever getting sick of the same tune. But the themes in these levels are just so great that you wouldn't want to get sick of them to begin with. The music in Banjo Tooie takes a similar route to the plot and is a lot more darker on the whole. There are still plenty of happy-go-lucky tracks in the game, don't get me wrong, but the ratio of happy to darker songs is skewed a bit more towards the darker ones. In all honesty, I like the music in this game more than I even like Banjo-Kazooie's music. I guess the little edgelord inside of me just likes the darker themes. I will say though, not every level has a great theme. I thought in Banjo-Kazooie there weren't really any bad tracks. There were some forgettable ones for sure, but nothing really bad. In this game, in Tooie, I will say there are some tracks that are just basic, they're just borderline bad to me. At least I think a majority of the tracks are actually really good in Banjo Tooie. I think the ratio is very good for really good songs to ones that are borderline bad or just bad. And I frequently come to listen to Banjo Tooie's music more actually than any other Rare game, except maybe Diddy Kong Racing. That's the number 2. So what I'm saying is I love the tracks, I love the music in this game, really. I just love it all. My favorite theme in the game has got to be Isle of Hags. It has the most renditions as well, I think, and I'm not sure why I find it so catchy. I just love the theme, and the Cloud Cuckoo Land rendition is great as well. Other great tracks include Hellfire Peaks with its farting noises, Witchy World, Mayhem Temple, and Jinjo Village. Tracks I would have to say are not very good include Pterodactyl Land and of course Glitter Gulch Mine. I just don't like that music at all, and I find the other one to be just rather dull and a bit generic. I totally forgot what Pterodactyl Land even sounded like, honestly. I had to go back and listen to it. I just had in my notes the music was uninspired, and yes it is. And I just think it's generic. But as a whole, again, I think the music is wonderful, really. Another Grant Kirkhope classic. In all honesty, though, I'm probably in the minority of people who prefer Tooie in terms of soundtrack to the original. If you made it to this part of the video, which do you prefer? But I think that's enough for the sound. It's time to get to my issues with Banjo Tooie. This review's as long as it is, so let's just get to the issues. Banjo Tooie has some issues that do need addressing. The game is not perfect, and here's my chance to air my grievances. I'll start with my biggest issue with the game and the most obvious one: how much world integration there is into the gameplay. This includes backtracking and the other worlds connecting to each other. While I'm not gonna lie, I actually do like how the worlds are connected, and I love the interconnectivity, but that's to a certain point. Like, in this game, it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, without a guide, there's no way I'm gonna figure this out. There's not enough clues, there's not enough hints, it's too obtuse, and it just gets to a point that's too much. The backtracking, well, annoying to some. I don't really mind it as much, as I kind of like going back to each level and finding something new. It's one of the reasons I like Castlevania and Metroid. I think backtracking is fine, but some of these jiggies require just way too much for them. We're talking like upwards an hour for some of these jiggies. While you can't expect every collectible to be fun to collect, obviously that's just not going to happen, there are a couple in this game that are just horrible. And the worst in this game is a tie between fixing the pool in Jolly Roger Lagoon and helping Mama Dinosaur. Both of them require way too much work and are incredibly cryptic. The pool one requires you to actually go to the final level in the game, knock an ice cube off a cliff, then go back to Hellfire Peaks, hit a switch, and then you properly filter it. They give you no indication of this at all. Banjo literally just says, this is going to take a while. That's it. And while I might have made it sound really easy, trust me, figuring that on your own, it's just not going to happen. You'd have to wander around forever. And if you figured it out on your own, you probably did wander around for a while, or you're a liar. The other one with the dinosaurs is ridiculous. I kind of already brought it up when talking about Pterodactyl Land, so I'm not really going to bring it up again. It's just doing these without a guide, I just cannot imagine the frustration. There is just not enough indication of what you need to do. And while these are the two worst examples, it can easily get on someone's nerves, as someone might just wanting to collect everything and they want to collect everything in one go in a level, and that's just not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And I think it just goes a little overboard at times. However, I do know a number of people absolutely loathe the amount of world connectivity and backtracking, and that's fine. I know I'm in the minority here when I say I like almost all of it, but I know even when enough is enough, and yeah, enough is enough a few times. Next is that I just don't really like some of the levels. Now, in the original game, there wasn't any level where I disliked. There was a couple where I wasn't a fan, but I didn't dislike any of them. I was just kind of indifferent. Here, I just dislike one of them in particular. I already brought it up. This is the third time now. It's Glitter Gulch Mine. I don't like this level. It's the only level in the original N64 games that I don't like. I don't like the design. It's easy to get lost. The transformation sucks, and some of the jiggies suck. While I don't dislike Grunty Industries, I certainly don't like it. I'm very in the middle about it. It's a really challenging level, don't get me wrong, but I think this one just goes a little too overboard, and everything looks the same in this level. It's easy to get lost, and it's got confusing jiggies. Pterodactyl Land, I'm more towards the like as opposed to the middle, but it's getting there. Another issue is that almost all the bosses are a joke. A lot of them are just way too easy for their own good, can feel a tad repetitive, and fail to keep me interested throughout. They aren't horrible, but a majority of them are just not very good. My next issue is kind of a minor one. It's at the beginning of the game. It can actually feel a bit slow. There's a lot of cutscenes present, and the first hour of the game can feel like a slog if you've already played the game. That's just me replaying the game, though. Some of the charm is just totally gone in this game, and while I did say I kind of prefer the darker, edgier storyline, I know some people aren't a fan of this. For instance, Banjo and Kazooie's health stays the same, no matter how much health they have. In the original game, they would change expressions. That's not here. They don't do the dance when they get a jiggy anymore. Something that was addressed, though, from the first game, I will say, was the camera. It's no longer jerky at all, and I think it was much better overall, and it didn't really ever get stuck on anything. Far better than the first game's camera, and there was actually some real improvement here. And this leads us to the conclusion. Yeah, so those are my main issues with the game. If you couldn't tell, this game is actually quite different from the first game. It's much grander, it's much longer, and way more challenging. It's a fair amount of different game design, and the game plays quite differently from the original in many aspects. And while some people don't always think more is better, I actually usually do. It seems I'm one of the rare individuals who actually prefers Banjo Tooie over Kazooie. I know, what a concept. Despite the issues I mentioned, I just kind of actually like Tooie more. I'm honestly still surprised by this. I remember back in the day I actually liked this game more than the first one, and I thought going back and critically examining it and looking at every level, it just wouldn't be the same situation. It shouldn't be, right? But no, I don't know. I just actually like the second game more than the first game. I know I'm actually in the total minority here, as a majority of people, in fact, I'd say almost all people you ask, like the first game more than the second one, but there's just something about the second game that I like more. I'm not even entirely sure about it myself. I just really like the scale of the game. While it does become a bit overbearing, I think as a whole it pulls it off really well, and I haven't really seen another collectathon game do anything like this. Certainly not to this level, with this level of world interactivity and how interwoven all the levels are. While some people don't like how large it is, I actually think the grandeur is better in this case. I think Rare really spread its wings with this game, and it's something even more unique than the original game. When it comes to the presentation, I think it's really on the same level for both games. It's just flawless, basically. I love the graphics, the music for both games, and Grant Kirkhope did a great job for both. And while I might not like one of the levels in the game, and I might feel middling about another one or two, I think the levels that I like in this game, I really like. Witchy World is definitely my favorite level in the whole series, and Mr. Patches is probably my favorite boss in the whole series as well. Cloud Cuckoo Land is one of my favorite levels in the series as well. Even Mayhem Temple and Hailfire Peaks are nothing to scoff at. I think a lot of the minigames are actually well done and aren't too intrusive, and actually still relate back to the main game. There's even a multiplayer mode with the game, but I've actually never played this. I love how you get to keep all your old moves, and you just have this massive arsenal of moves to use in the game. And yeah, I did say a lot of them are underutilized, but I still like the additions regardless. I like how every level has its own transformation, and the bottom line is I just love how big the game is. Alright though, I already said in conclusion, so I need to be near the end of this video. It's gone on long enough. All in all, I love how big the scope is of the game. I love the new stuff that is brought to the table. While not everything it brought to the table is great, I certainly think it brought more positives rather than negatives. The game is definitely one of my favorite 3D platformers of all time. I think if you like the first game, this is a must play. If you've made it to this part of the video, you've probably already played the game, so I'd love to know if you prefer the original over this one, why I'm wrong for liking this one over the original also. I would actually say it's probably my favorite game from Rare on the N64 next to Diddy Kong Racing. I think most people can conclude that the game is fantastic regardless of which Banjo game you like more. The game is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and that's why I think it was worth it to do this incredibly in-depth critical analysis. Now, if you guys think I forgot anything or missed something, because I'm sure I did, please just tell me, and I'd love to read your comment about it. I think it's a great game altogether, and if you made it to this part of the video, first off, let me say thank you, because I had a blast making this video, but it took me a long ass time. Writing the script took me well over 5 hours, and just trying to properly explain why I prefer this game over the original was never going to be an easy task. But here I am, and hopefully I've made my point clear and been able to argue my point. With that in mind, subscribing would be the absolute best, and commenting. Liking the video or even disliking the video would be great as well. I have a Twitter, if you could follow that, that'd be cool, but nobody seems to like Twitter at this point. I have a Patreon, but nobody cares about that. Also, here we go, right before we end the video, we got a fun fact. There is a dick formation in the game with the ground. It's totally one, don't say otherwise. Okay though, everyone, thank you very much. Have a nice Christmas.